Question number 2, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How can he be, quote, proud of the government's record in tackling child poverty, end quote, when he said this week it's probably numerically correct that the number of children in poverty has grown under his watch?
Right Honourable
Mr Speaker,
Prime Minister.
as we know with this, there are many, many measures, and what I can be absolutely sure of is there's 42,000 children, less children living in benefit-based households over the last 3 years, Mr Speaker. I can be sure that we have done a great deal of things for those children who live with hardship, including free GPs visits and prescriptions, including the work we've done with charitable organisations like Breakfast in Schools, including the work we've done with social workers, Mr Speaker, including the work we've done with children's teams, including the work we've done in insulating homes. Mr Speaker, in the worst of all times, this government actually maintained benefits and entitlements for New Zealanders. There were plenty of people who wanted to slash them. This government supported them.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
How many, if any, of the 260,000 children currently in poverty will no longer be in poverty as a result of the budget tomorrow?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't have an exact answer for that, and even if I did have it, I wouldn't give it to the member a day before the budget. But what I can say, though, is that the fastest way out of poverty is through work. And this government is doing two things in that regard. One is it's underpinning with its policies strong economic growth and strong job creation. And we know that because there are 42,000 less children living in benefit-based households than there was 3 years ago. The second thing that this government is doing is invoking the investment approach when it comes to people that are on benefits, making sure they've got skills, making sure they've got the training, making sure they have access to the opportunity to look after themselves. Mr Speaker, again, I'm actually very proud of what this government is doing to help people to help themselves.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why did the Prime Minister abandon the thousands of children who turn up to school hungry every day by voting against my bill to feed them lunch at school, and even stood in this House and denied that those children existed?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, I reject the last part of the member's answer, other than I think she over-exaggerated those numbers, and I think we demonstrated that on the day.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Why is the Prime Minister abandoning young New Zealanders in their 30s for whom home ownership has plummeted faster than any other age group under his watch?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, again, I reject that proposition, but if the member cares about young people in their 30s getting a home, why didn't the member support the Home Start package that we had? Why doesn't the member support RMA reform? Why doesn't the member actually support the work we're doing with special housing areas? I know, because the member likes to jump up and down and complain, but when it comes to actually doing anything, she's never done anything because she's never been in government.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why is the Prime Minister abandoning young parents by refusing to fix working for families so that young parents who lose work hours or who fall on hard times don't also lose the $60 a week in-work tax credit lifeline they rely on?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as the member knows, that policy, which was introduced by Labor, and I think in this instance correctly positioned that way, ensured that there was always a gap between welfare and work. And if there aren't those incentives, all of the academic evidence shows you actually that there will be less incentive to people to move off welfare into work. And I think if you have a welfare system in New Zealand, it's a sign of a decent society that looks after people, but it's also a system based on obligation. And we owe it to the thousands or millions of New Zealand taxpayers who work hard to pay their taxes that actually people who are on welfare feel that obligation that they should go out and work if they possibly can.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Metiria Turei.
Will
Order.
the Prime Minister at least agree?
Order. Would the member ask you supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Prime Minister at least agree that an economy that isn't working for everyone, that includes young New Zealanders under 40 who are struggling to buy a home, who are struggling to get decent paid work, who are trying to raise their children in increasing financial insecurity, is an economy that is simply not working?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Far from not working, the economic credentials and performance of this government over the last 7 years, in contrast to even like-minded countries, demonstrates that this government has been performing well. And, Mr. Speaker, we live in the real world. In the real world, there's been a global financial crisis and many other issues. And actually, some of these issues, when it comes to either people on benefits or children living in benefit-based households, have been very long-standing complex issues. They won't actually be resolved overnight, but the work that this government is doing, breaking down the silos and the barriers that are there, are working pretty well. And I think the member actually speaks from great ignorance when she rejects what the government's doing there.
Question number 3, Jamie Lee Ross.